Hi there, you are watching my video review on these STA Fineliners I bought off Aliexpress for US $10.92. If you would like more information, head over to my blog CraftyEpicurean.com. So these pens came with a nice rigid plastic case. They arrived well packaged inside bubble wrap, which was then wrapped in black plastic packaging with the shipping label attached to the outside of that plastic. To show you exactly how they arrived, here's the bubble wrap. The case and pens were inside, like so. Then it was wrapped in this plastic wrap, so it was actually very well packaged. The only downside on first impressions was that the case had been opened, as the label here was already torn. Otherwise, the pens and case arrived in very good condition. I quite like how the case splits in two when it's opened and can be used as pen holders, which I have found quite handy when it comes to, say, sorting or organising colour combinations for particular projects. For example, I can put all the greens in one cup. I bought a 26 pen set and all 26 pens arrived. The product code on the set I purchased is number 6200-KP26. I also like that the size of the case is such that it's easy and can quickly replace all the pens into the case. Let's take a look at the pens themselves. These Fineliners have a round grey barrel, which is smooth, with a coloured cap and end to indicate the pen colour. Each colour code is printed along the barrel, as well as the brand and a barcode. The barrel is mostly smooth and has a good general feel when held. There are little raised bumps for grips on the barrel and the lid of each pen. The lids are securely fitted and they require a bit of a firm force to remove, so that's quite a positive indication that it's a good seal on the pen when you need a big, good, firm pull to get it off. When replacing the cap, it also gives a nice click and positively confirms it's secure. The same can be said when placing the cap on the end of the barrel. When held in a writing position, I find these pens are very comfortable to hold. The tip is a 0.4mm tip and it has a metal protective sleeve. However, when I compare these to my old set of Fineliners, which also have a metal protective sleeve, as I'm going to show you now, these pens also have a fine tip. But as you'll see, so here I show you, they have a metal protective tip, and you see the colour tip has actually failed and has started to bend and fray, which is not so good, so it doesn't actually protect the tip, so hopefully these new ones do. But I did like the plastic case and how sturdy it was, and I like that it was a hexagonal barrel on my old ones rather than a round barrel on these new ones. Writing with these STA Fineliners was very comfortable. I found it very easy, and they were a fine liner. Definitely 0.4 mils. I can positively agree that they are a really nice fine writing pen, and they're comfortable to grip as well, and when I push down on them they don't feel like they're going to fray and bend like my old ones did, and felt like they would easily bend over. So I'm just going to try and arrange some of the colours to give you an idea of the colour combination that this 26 piece set came with. So it came with 3 purples, 3 blues, a darker light and a super light. You'll see during the swatching that the colour caps are actually a fairly good indication of the colour of the pen, but of course do a swatching on the paper you're using to make sure you get a good idea of the colour that you will be using. So there's quite a few greens. You see that it came with 6 different greens. Grey, blacks, there was 1 black, 2 greys, another green, so that's 7 greens in the set of 26 pens. There was 1 brown, and I'm just going to move these aside so I can show you the rest of the colour combinations that it came with. So there's like red pinks, 4 red pinks. Okay, so 3 reds and 3 pinks. Now some of these colours were actually quite highlighter, so they're kind of see-through and not very solid in colour, but you'll see that during the swatching. And there's 2 oranges and a yellow. I think that's all of them. Yeah, so there was good colour range, quite a few greens, but you get some of all. One yellow, so if you like yellow colouring things or writing, probably not the best set for you to get. And only 2 greys, so if you like doing those monotone or monochromatic black and white look, then it's probably not useful for you. Oh, another awesome thing about the case is the hexagonal. It's not going to roll off your table, and the hexagonal shape is that it doesn't have to line, the label side doesn't have to line up, so you can put it on each side. It's great with the lid on. It doesn't shake off. As you can see, I was shaking it about, it stayed on pretty firmly, and the plastic is really sturdy on this case. I'm quite happy with the case. So on to the swatching of the colours. So I'm just using this bullet journal, the spare bullet journal that I have, dot journal that I have, and I'm just going to write the title. This page is this, I'm just going to title the swatching page with the markers and the brand and the model number for what I bought. So as I mentioned, the STA markers, the product code is 6200-KP26. When I do the swatching, I'm not going to go in any particular order. I'm just going to keep the colours together because that's how I like to do my swatching, and that's most useful for me. So I will do a little box and colour that in, so block colouring, and then I will write the product code and then the colour code that is written on the barrel for that colour. And I'm just going to use one of these, the one side of the case, to hold the pens as I've used them or swatched them. So I'm just going to go ahead now. So I started off with the greys / blacks, and I'm just going to speed this up to get right to the end of the swatching. Radio, so that's the whole 26 pen set swatched. As you can see, the darker colours are really quite solid. There's quite a few of the lighter colours. I would call them more like a highlighter because it's not as solid. The ink is still there, but it's not as juicy as those darker colours. The darker colours are definitely more juicier than the lighter colours, and the lighter colours are more like highlighter colours because they're a little bit see-through and they don't really block out the page with their colour. And you can see that I've swatched them and matching them by colours. So time to do a bit of testing, to some water fastness testing. So I've just got a selection of dark and light colours from these fine liners, and I'm just getting a watercolour brush and just brushing water over it straight after I've written the line. So this is basically write the line, and then a few seconds later I'm going to grab my brush and swipe water over it. So just like that, and as you can see, it's not exactly water fast, and it seems like here with the darker colours it is worse. So I'll just give this a go with solid colour rather than just a line and see how this goes. I also want to see if you could watercolour with these pens. Given how that purple didn't really wash out very well, I wouldn't suggest you watercolour with these pens. I try a lighter colour like this yellow. probably could, but I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe like a mid-tone colour. So let's try that green, which is kind of not as dark as the purple, but not as light as the yellow. Yeah, as you see, it doesn't really blend out very well with water. Right, so let's try. I'm just going to do some lines now and then let it dry before applying the water on and seeing if the ink in these pens are water fast. Right, so giving that time to dry, I'll do another set of dark and light lines, and that will be for, I want to test this with highlighters because I know that some of you like to use these for journaling and then highlighting over it. So water fastness and highlighter fastness, we'll call it. Another one is the smudge test. So this is another test I want to do. So I'm just going to write it straight away and then see if it smudges. So I'm doing a line and then a little bit of block colouring and then rubbing my finger straight over it. And I'm trying to use a different finger each time to make sure I'm not contaminating during this test. And once again, as you can see, it's like the darker colours take a bit longer to dry, so you might want to keep that in mind if you want to use these fine liners. The lighter colours look like they dry quite quickly and don't smudge. So yeah, something else for, I guess, you lefties, the left-handeds. Yeah, so you'll have to be aware that those darker colours do tend to smudge. Right, so I decided to do another set of lines to test with alcohol markers and see if they are alcohol ink fastness, I guess you would call it. So here I come in with my water brush and do the water fastness test again. So I went up, I did a stroke down and then a stroke up, just to make sure I'm not contaminating the lighter colours. And as I suspected, the darker colours are not as water fast as the lighter colours, so you might want to keep that in mind when you're using these. Here is a Faber-Castell pink highlighter, just a generic highlighter, again doing a stroke downwards and then a stroke upwards to check the highlighter fastness on these fine liners. And once I let these pens dry, they look fine to be used with highlighters, or at least a Faber-Castell highlighter. Here is a Touch 5 alcohol marker. I'm using the chisel end, and I'm going to use this number 18, which is peach, which is kind of like a highlighter colour, so if you want to use it as a highlighter, so upstroke, downstroke, and let's see how that went with the alcohol markers. It actually did pretty well. There is no movement on that ink, so that's a pass on the alcohol markers with these fine liners. Alright, so something I want to show you was how far, I guess, the ink in these fine liners soaks through the paper. Now this is quite a thin sheet of paper, so it's not very thick, but you can see that, yeah, it does come through, and you can see the water comes through, but not the fine liners themselves, and that's on a bit of card that's about 100 GSM. Here I am using the fine liners to colour in this motif. Now, so for those who like to use fine liners for colouring, they are really well, and the tips held up as well, which I was really impressed with, because my other ones would not have, they bent over when I did this sort of thing. So how I coloured this was using a little scribble, as I'm showing here as an example, and I just went inside those lines when I coloured this motif. Another example was colouring with fine liners using cross hatching. So as you can see, it went really well with these markers. I mean these pens, these fine liner pens. They're really fine. You can see the hatching lines. So it maintains that 0.4mm thickness as you write it continuously. You know, it doesn't, the pens don't tend to deform, and they hold up, so they're a good quality tip. And I'm just showing you here how I tended to do the cross hatching to colour in this, if you were interested in trying out fine liners to colour in a image like that. Oh, and I should mention that this image is a stamped image, so it's a stamped background image, and the previous one I used a digital stamp with carbon paper to transfer it onto card and then colour it in. So overall I love the case on these pens. I love how it's hexagonal in cross-sectional area, so it doesn't roll off the table if you just place it down on your workspace or your craft table or wherever you're working. The pens feel great, they write well, the tips are high quality, they hold, they can be drawn with heaps. I've used these a lot and the tips are still pretty much perfect how I bought them. The case is really sturdy. When you put the lid back on, it doesn't matter which side you line it up with. I just like to line up the label because I have a bit of OCD there. The colour range is a little bit disappointing in that there are heaps of greens, but there's 26 pens, so I'm not overly fussed about that. The colours are more solid with the darker colours than the lighter ones, but in saying that, they do give really good colours and none of them were dried. The barrel on the pens are round, so it is frustrating if you've got a slightly angled surface. They do tend to roll off your work surface or whatever you're working on or wherever you've placed them. So comparing them to my old fine liners, I do prefer the hexagonal barrel because, well, then I don't lose my pens. So they are not water fast and they're okay to use with highlighters and alcohol markers. And the dark colours take a little bit longer to dry, so they do smudge a lot quicker. The lighter colours dry quite quickly. And that's my review on these STA Fineliners. If you'd like more information, head over to my blog craftyepicurean.com. And thank you for watching.